then I think it was the next day they called me up and said, oh, we've got a client that wants to do some media. Would you like a chat with them? And I was like, okay, let me just form a company first and do whatever else and do all that kind of admin, logistics, whatever.
Sleep deprivation is a proper torture.
It's a proper torture, yeah.
It makes your mind do weird and wonderful things.
Well, how many hours would you get?
So I wouldn't sleep for one full night.
How long was this going on for, this sleeping?
About a year.
pattern? You can't have Indiana Jones without a whip.
Exactly. I said, well, hang on a minute, what do you mean? Why didn't you tell us that? You knew what the ad was, you saw the storyboard. I now realised I had an ad with one of these emblems of Indiana Jones, and I didn't have the rights for it.
Well, London had always been calling since the Spice Girls. I was just gonna get my visa, get the bare minimum to go. I'm gonna work it out. I didn't have a job. I didn't have anywhere to live.
How are you going to pay for everything?
My £1,800 down.
£1,800 has to let you survive for you don't know how long at this point.
Well, yeah.
And I went and had some conversations with people. And actually, I had a conversation with someone that was interested in me working with them before. And that's what kind of led to an introduction. They basically said that, look, it would have been great if we had some kind of relationship and had some kind of partnership with someone of your skill set, in terms of how they were talking about it. And they said that, maybe we should stay in touch and whatever else and keep us up to date about, what you're doing and how you're doing it. And then I think it was the next day they called me up and said, oh, we've got a client that wants to do some media. Would you like a chat with them? And I was like, okay, let me just form a company first and do whatever else and do all that kind of admin, logistics, whatever. And anyway, I went and had a chat with them.
Did you set up a company before chatting with them?
I'm not sure how quickly it takes to set up a company, but it all happened in around a very close period of time.
14 days or something to get your letter through.
Yeah, so I put the application in or something.
Really?
I don't know.
And that was the barbershop?
Yeah. So the next day, literally, I spoke to a client, or whatever. The company was formed. And then I called it the barbershop. I called it, so I called it TBS Partners. That's the name of our company because, I abbreviated it. And I was thinking, I'm not sure if this is the name I want. I'm not sure, if I'm going to start this with other people or not. I had so many unanswered questions that I didn't want a name that I was going to choose that I was going to later regret, or if I got someone else involved, they wouldn't like, and it was just like, So I just kind of abbreviated it, and but had in mind the barbershop as the name, and then I kind of like had a bit of a tease campaign, let's say, just in terms of telling people it's called TBS. I'll announce it at another date, kind of thing, and then. Yeah. Anyway, so then I got the first client very, very quickly.
That's nice. A nice start.
Revenue. Yeah.
Brilliant. And this is April 2019.
No, May. Yeah, May.
May 2019. And how has it been since then? So you get your first client and you're off.
Yeah. So get my first client. I'm off. Working out how to do things along the way. I'm still deciding what kind of company I want and whatever else in terms of what to create. And I'm speaking to people, more maybe about personnel, people, team, other co-founders. And there are others that I'm approached, others that are interested, others that we spend time with. It was all kind of like just, doing the planning work really in terms of, the company and the proposition. But meanwhile, there were people that wanted kind of campaigns and things done, and through whatever introductions I had work, which was very helpful.
And what are you most proud of in the barbershop journey?
The fact that the first people actually paid me any money, like the hardest thing in the world when you start a new company or a company is everyone usually goes, oh, well, what have you done before? And what's your, what have you done as a company before? Rather than go, what have you as a person done before? So they're judging you by the company rather than your own kind of achievements and stuff.
Well, I set that up yesterday, so I can't really tell you anything.
There is nothing. There's nothing that I've done before. Yeah.
But my illustrious career I can talk about, but they're not. Yeah.
But rightfully so. They are worried about things like finance and the boring stuff to business, which is kind of right. Is their money safe with you kind of thing,
Yeah.
Are you going to go bankrupt? Which is all, a much bigger deal with media in particular when you're dealing with large sums of money where you're investing on their behalf. So that was the biggest surprise to me, the fact that I was able to gain people's trust quickly.
How?
I don't know.
It just happened. Well,
No,
I guess you built a lot of contacts.
Yeah, well,
over the time.
Well, it's all kind of selling, convincing people to trust you, which is a number of things. It's kind of like, you've got to present your ideas and your thoughts, but also I guess who you get introduced by, if they trust them and they've got a relationship with them, they will know that. And if you've got a good relationship with them, they wouldn't recommend you if they didn't trust you themselves, because they know that you could let them down. And I guess it's that chain of trust that probably made the biggest difference.
What's the biggest lesson you've learned from running your own company? So you're in this new industry, you're having to build teams, meet new people, and you have your first child. What was the reality of that experience versus what you thought it might be like?
That was, I think, one of my most challenging moments personally. I didn't realize how, you hear about it, but I didn't realize how disruptive a child could be to your normal routine, especially when you don't have your family, your parents or anybody, that kind of support infrastructure around you. So it's only you and your partner. And my wife worked full time as well. And my daughter at that time was what we call a reflux baby. She couldn't eat without throwing up a bit of it all the time.
Wow.
And
so every time she would eat, she would throw up.
She would some part of it would throw up, which meant that she would be hungry quicker, which meant she wouldn't sleep as much, which meant she'd cry a lot. And man, sleep deprivation is a proper torture.
It's a proper torture, yeah.
It makes your mind do weird and wonderful things.
Well, how many hours would you get, or what was the sleeping pattern?
The sleeping pattern was, the way we worked it out was that we wouldn't wake up in alternate sort of form. We did alternate nights. So I wouldn't sleep for one full night, literally, because the baby would keep on getting up and I'd feed and put her to bed. And the next night, my wife would do that.
And after that, a whole night of not going to sleep,
you go to work.
Then go to work.
Yes.
And your wife has to do the same.
Exactly. So, which meant the way to get around it was to be very, very disciplined and very much planned. So we had this very strict calendar to try and get into routine. So, I know what I'm doing. My wife knows what she's doing. And at this time, this thing happens. At that time, that thing happens. At this time, she's going somewhere. At this time, I'm traveling somewhere, etc. The issue with that is I'm absolutely terrible at great routine. And I'm terrible in constrained environments of this is what you must do every day and follow it to the letter. It's just never been me. Which again leads to issues because you go, well, it's written down that you were supposed to do this at this time. And I forgot. So I think it was those kind of things which I just did not expect.
How long was this going on for, this sleeping
About a year.
pattern? A year of...
Well, no, I think for her, for the sleep reflux thing was about the first 6 months.
Still.
But the first year, I would say, was very disruptive and a learning experience for both of us. And got much easier after that. But it's just the unexpectedness of it.
Yeah. And what would you say to, young professionals that are thinking about having their first child and to continue and they want to continue to work? What would be your tips for them?
I think firstly, you should continue to work. Definitely. It's a bit of insanity when you don't get to speak to an adult at some point of time. So I think you need to have that. Secondly, it does take discipline and it does take routine. Children, in that sense, love routines. They need, if you can get them into a time in which they wake up, they eat, they fall asleep, etc., is really great. So have a routine, stick to it, and don't give up work. And this definitely goes for women. I think a child has two parents. Both of you agreed to bring that child into the world. You should both equally look after it.
So you've had roles as head of marketing for Europe at Nokia, then head of marketing for EMEA for Experian, and this is where Aviva enters the game. Mm-hmm. What happens? Are you hit up by a recruiter? And
I get a call from this slightly shady guy who sold me the rights to say, there's been a bit of a misunderstanding, and because we'd sent the film over to him, I think, so he could see it. The hat is fine. We've got, the hat. And I said, what are you trying to say? He said, well, the whip. The whip. We don't have we can't sell the rights to the whip. It's like,
you can't have Indiana Jones without a whip.
Exactly. So I said, well, hang on a minute. What do you mean? Why didn't you tell us that? You knew what the ad was. You saw the storyboard. He said, well, no, I was a bit confused. The guy was hopeless, but there wasn't much in the way of, help, because I now realized I had an ad with one of these emblems of Indiana Jones, and I didn't have the rights for it, or we didn't have, and the client didn't have. So I was literally, I put the phone down, blood draining from my face, because we've spent £250,000 on the ad. I've just been told that we don't have the rights to show the whip. We can't get it out of the ad. It's in the ad. It's, it's an integral part of the ad.
Yeah.
And like no chance in hell of getting the rights. And we've got millions of pounds booked on air.
How are you feeling at this point?
I felt like death, literally. And so I put the phone down, and I thought to myself, this is the end of my career. I am going to have to go and I'm going to go and tell my bosses what's happened. So eventually I went to the loo, obviously. And then I went over to see these guys, Roy Woolman and Terry Bannister, who had taken over from Tim Bell, who were the next in line.
Yeah.
Great guys. I walked into their office. I think they were playing football in their office. They used to share an office. They would join CEOs. And they said, "You're all right. You're all right, boy. You look a bit sad, So I said, I've got something terrible's happened. So I told them the story. And they didn't even stop playing football, And I think Terry said, "Oh, you'll think of something, And they carried on.
Perfect advice.
Carried on playing football.
And I walked out of the room, and I was like, I had this sort of, well, on the one hand, I've not been sacked. That's good.
That's
good.
On the other hand, they think I'm going to think of something. That's bad. I'm not. I've thought of everything I can think of. I haven't got any answers.
That's why you came to them. For
yeah.
an answer.
So, but brilliant example of management, really, because it would have been so easy for them to, just turn on me and, just wallow in the problem. So I went back to my office. I don't know where this came from, but I just said to this young guy that was working on the account with me, the account exec, "Dylan, come in here." So Dylan came here. I said, this problem with because now it's all around the building. Everyone knows there's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
This problem with the Indiana Jones film. He said, "Yeah, it's terrible." I said, "Yeah, well, look, here's the thing. I think that the only way is if we go to Los Angeles, show the film to Lucasfilms, who've got all the rights. I mean, they're the fountainhead of all the rights.
Mm-hmm.
They made the film. Get them to give us the approval." And this guy, he looked at me and said, "Are you mad?" I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "How on earth are we going to get Luke? I mean, like, we've got no time. They're not going to see it." I was like, it's not going to work.
So you told him to fly all the way to LA.
I said, "Look, it will work." I said, you go on a plane to San Francisco, go to Lucasfilms, take the film, sit in reception until you see George Lucas. Tell him what's
Not only
happened.
Lucasfilms, see the man
See
himself.
George
man
Lucas.
himself.
Tell him we've made a mistake. Beg his forgiveness. Tell him we're in a sticky position. It's good for the Indiana Jones franchise, promoting the thing. Just go. He said, "I'll go, but it'll be a waste of time."
And this guy's thinking, I've got to spend the next however many days it takes.
Actually,
to go
I
there
think
and
he
back.
was secretly pleased because he
Well,
thought, I'm going to San Francisco.
Yeah.
I'm not paying for it.
Yeah.
Happy days. Yeah.
So off he goes. And meanwhile, we've got 3 or 4 other things we're trying to work on. Like, can we edit the film? Then I've sort of almost forgot that he'd gone. And about 4 days later, I get a phone call. My PA says, "I've got Dylan on the phone." It's, "Dylan, what's happened?" And I'm fully expecting the sob story, He said, "Yeah, I've seen George.
Wow.
It's fine."
Yeah.
In a few words. What
I
did
said,
you
"But
think?
no, stop. But tell me more. I want to know more." He said, and he was a terribly nice young man and very polite. And he went into the Lucasfilms, which I've subsequently been to. It's an impressive place.
Yeah.
And he eventually gets in to see, because he's just a curiosity. This weird Englishman's arrived, and he's got a film, so I need to show George. So he gets into the outer sort of office of where George is, and he sits there, and the PA keeps saying, "I don't think George is going to see you today." He sat there for like 2 days, and eventually George says, "Send that guy in," So Dylan comes in, and he's trying to explain. He said, "Just put it on, put the film on." They put the film on. He goes, "Yeah, it's great." He said, "Well, can we run it?" He said, "Yeah, you can run it. It's fine." That was literally.
Wow.
So we never had anything signed or anything. It was just a kind of on his say-so.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
There's no signature.
No,
Just
but we had no other choice. So, but yeah, we got away with it. But that was a
Wow.
up, a royal up, and I So to go back to where we started, which is, on your road, the rocky road to any kind of success you're going to have, there will be sort of problems that you have to just hope, luck or something comes your way to get around.
Then you decide London is calling. How does that come about?
Well, London had always been calling since the Spice Girls.
Okay.
London had been calling for a while. I was always obsessed with the culture, even from high school, right? But obviously I needed to focus on just getting to Canada, just one step at a time. But it was always there in the background. And I think as I got older, I met like my best friend when I was like 26, and she had the same obsession. And so it felt like we just were feeding our obsession with each other. And it felt like this is the time, because there's a scheme for Canadians to come to the UK, and there's like a cap on the age. And I felt like after the first year at Ben Simon Burn, it was really fun. I loved it. But again, that itchy feet, there's more for me. Toronto is great, but maybe there's more out there. Mm-hmm. And if I don't go now, I'm not getting any younger. I'm not getting older every day. So I need to make this move, period. It was another feeling that I had to go with. I couldn't ignore it, or maybe I'm just like denying myself. Mm-hmm. So I had really no idea how to approach it, to be fair. I was just going to get my visa, get the bare minimum to go, because they had to be like certain amount of money you have to save. And that was it. I was like, I'm just going to do it and I'm going to work it out, period. So after the second year of Ben Simon, I tried everything that year, save the money, came to visit just to double check. Okay. My best friend was supposed to come to move with me. She didn't, but that's another story. I'll tell you later. And I just told all my friends I was going to do it. And I secretly got the visa without my work knowing. And then when I did get the visa, I told them. Okay. You only have to give 2 weeks notice as well there.
Wow.
Just like the movie.
So 2 weeks later, you were on the plane?
Pretty much. I moved on my birthday. Yeah, I moved on like 3 days after my birthday. And to be honest, if I did that today, that's crazy, because I didn't really have any friends here. I knew one person as a minor acquaintance. I didn't have a job. I didn't have anywhere to live.
How are you going to pay for everything?
How I was going to pay for it? With like this, like my 1,800 pounds. Oh my God, it was stupid.
Wow.
It's dumb.
1,800 pounds has to let you survive for you don't know how long at this point.
Well, yeah.
And there's no job fair with a gong.
There's no gong.
No gongs.
There was no gong. That's why I look back and I think, well, my dad was really mad at me for doing it, by the way. He was so mad. But he was scared for me, because he probably was thinking this is a little bit reckless.
What did he say to you?
Don't move there. But to be fair, I just felt like, what's the worst that can happen? I guess I'll have to go back to Canada, I suppose. I've moved countries before. It's going to work out. In my head, I'm going to figure it out. We'll make it work. We're just going to make it work. I'm like, work in a bar, work in a bar. I don't care. I have to live with 100 people. I live with 100 people. I remember when I moved here, and it was like the first day, and for some luck, I was very lucky. Actually, let me rewind, because this was like quite a big stepping stone. Is when I was in Toronto, I went to a restaurant, and a girl from my work was there from Ben Simon, and I didn't really talk to her much, but she was like in creative services. And I was like, oh, hey, what are you doing here? I heard like you're moving to London, because she was moving because of her husband got a job here. And she was like, yeah. You know what? I've been talking to this recruiter. She's been really, really good. So you know what? Like, you're moving. Oh, you're moving. I didn't know that. Here, take her contact. And I said, well, yeah, because I was looking online at like different recruiters, and that's not such a big thing in Canada. So it was like a whole new world. And she's like, she's really nice. So I reached out, and she was so lovely and so supportive. And she's like, oh my God, this is great. This is the place. This is the type of roles you could do. These are the places. I think you'd be great. I love your attitude. You just got like a really just fresh, different take on things, even though I really had no idea what I was doing, but she really just bought into my personality. Mm-hmm. And so she lined stuff up for me when I got here, and I didn't really know what I was doing, but I guess that I was like, there's something there, there's opportunities. So I'm just going to have to seize the opportunity and make it work. And so the day after I moved, I mean, I was staying at St. Christopher's Hostel in a room with like 7 girls. It was ridiculous. It was like the cheapest room. And I hated it because A is like a million girls and I used to live alone. They had the shower. We had to press the button for the water to come out.
And it comes back out again.
Oh my God. I'm like, what? Am I back in jail? Am I in Honduras again? Like, I felt like I had really downgraded. And so this could just, you know, and I'm just like in the stairwell on the phone to Canada being like, I'm in a stairwell in the St. Christopher's and I don't know and I'm all by myself. Like, what have I done?
This is not how the Spice Girls live.
This is like, I'm at the bottom right now. So I remember that morning I woke up, I had this interview, it was at DDB. It's pretty good.
So describe what DDB is for people who don't know.
Oh, DDB is now Adam and Eve DDB. So it's like huge global network, super successful.
This is in 2012.
Yeah, they were This is literally right before they were Adam and Eve DDB.
I see.
2014, I think it was.
Yeah, it was like 2012, 13, like. But basically, so they were still an iconic agency, VW, like huge, right? So I remember my recruiter. She's like, "Listen, I know this guy. It's an early 8:30 meeting, so you should get him a coffee." And I was like, "Really?" She's like, "Trust me, trust me, trust me." I would never usually go and bring a coffee to my interviewer. But she gave me that advice. And so I'm like, I'll do whatever you say. So I get there and I give him a coffee and he's just really happy. Seems like really grateful for that. So I was like, amazing tick. But I just moved to like London the day before and I hadn't heard about all the different vernacular we use, especially in the industry. Like they call planners, like strategists, planners. I didn't know that. So I remember in this interview and he's going on about the relationship between planners and creatives. And I really had no idea what he was talking about. I'll be honest. Sorry, guys. And I just made up some answer and I think he was happy with it. And I was thinking like, well,
getting away with this one.
Just smile and just be positive and just try and be someone that they want to have around, basically. Yeah. And I found out later that day that like I got it. It was freelance. I got it. And I was like, oh my God, I got a job like the day I moved here at DDB. Whoa, oh my gosh.
This is going to work out.
This is going to work out.
Trust my intuition.
It worked. So I have to say, you know, when you move to London and you meet all these people, I met a lot of Canadians in the network and they're like, oh man, it's so hard here. And it's like really gloomy and it's like going to knock you down. And like, yeah, I've had a few of these weird situations like nightmare landlords and like toxic people. But overall, getting that opportunity in day one, it just changed my whole attitude. And I thought, you know what? It's going to be fine. It's going to work out. So yeah, did I run out of money? Of course I ran out of money. 1,800 pounds is not enough. But my sister lent me some and I paid her back.
Right.
So, you know, you figure it out and, you know, create a network again. The friend that let me stay with him, my very light acquaintance that I had met in a park once from Canada, who was so generous and let me stay at his house until I got my own place.
Wow.
He's still a good friend of mine today. And we're like, you know, we created like a new network here too. So
some really key relationships there that you had through introductions or family or a park, you know, the recruiter to your sister.
You never know. You never know who's going to help you. Like, you know, when you're thinking, I want to get to this point. I want to get to that point. I mean, when I'm sitting in the stairwell or taking a shower with a stupid button, I'm not thinking that, you know, on 10 years, I'll be able to be a co-founder at like an agency and like one of the best networks in the world. But it's just like little stepping stones and little moments that kind of get you. And each role I had helped me get the next role.